You're listening to Amazing Radio. This is Amazing Afternoons. I'm delighted to say I'm joined right now by Oscar Lang. How you doing, Oscar?
Hello, I am doing all right, as well as I can be with coronavirus.
Well, you wouldn't have gone through a pandemic and been forced off the road for well over a year if you hadn't actually, got the medal itself. You know what I mean?
You know what? I said this so many times. All of the times in the pandemic that I said, oh, it's actually crazy that I've made it through the pandemic and not got coronavirus. A few days later, we've had a scare. And actually, like 2 days before I actually did get coronavirus, I was like, oh, amazing. I've made it through the pandemic. We're almost at the other side and I didn't get corona. Then boom, got smacked with it. But I'm glad that I've got it because it's out of the way. It's boxed off.
Exactly. Yeah, I just got I brought my second jab forward to Monday, and I don't know how many jabs you've had yet, Oscar, if you had any, but
I got one jab.
Yeah, I felt pretty ropey just off the jab.
Yeah, I got, my arm was like all over the place. So when I got the first one, it was really like just the arm pain. I didn't get anything else though, to be honest.
Yeah, and you're gonna need your arms being, playing guitar and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
get that second jab as soon as you can before the tour dates. Anyway, right, we'll get on to business then. The record, it's almost here, almost. How's that feel finally?
Exciting, so exciting. It's weird to think that just over 2 weeks, in 2 weeks time, people are going to hear it and everything that I've been working on for ages. Yeah, really, really exciting. I've been working up to this for years, and also the last year, at the start of the pandemic, we released a whole bunch of EPs, and we're kind of just building up to this and developing the sound. So I'm just excited for people to hear like everything.
Yeah, well, let's talk about it a little bit in depth then. Was it Rich Turvey you worked with on this record? You worked with him before, and he's kind of like, he's the go-to guy at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah, Rich Turvey, he's so boss, and we also just like get along really well. So whenever we do stuff, it's like hanging out with a mate. He actually co-wrote a lot of the album because we did my previous 2 EPs with him, and he was kind of the guy that like took my sound and helped me build it out a bit more, because I'd always wanted to go a little bit more in the indie rock direction and beef out my sound a bit, but I didn't know how to. And yeah, me and him just clicked. He just understood everything I was about, and he kind of thought on the same wavelength as me. And it's really refreshing to have someone that just thinks like you, is like a second version of you, but actually knows how to do all the things you want to do.
That's cool. And did you end up going to Park Street then to do recording, or was it quite fragmented because of the pandemic over the last year and a half?
Well, yeah. So we did the previous EPs at Park Street, and we demoed the album at Park Street, but we actually did it over at a studio called Coastal Sounds, which used to be Elevator Studios in Liverpool. And it was amazing, really, because we went up in, I think it was end of October, November, when it was actually in around that time, Liverpool was a hotspot. There was like a weird hotspot in Liverpool in November last year. And so literally as we arrived, there's like this, like, I can't even remember what it was. It was like different tiers or whatever. It was the red zone.
Yeah, the regional things. Yeah, that was all.
Yeah. Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as we arrived, it went into like red alert, and it was kind of amazing actually to be in a studio with all my friends, locked down after, a year of not being able to see them, and all of us being separated, and then suddenly we were all thrown in together and trapped in a studio together. It was really nice.
And is being in the studio with Rich a kind of exploration of sound? Is it a kind of, I haven't actually been in Park Street, but is there lots of like analog gear and stuff knocking about when you're like, let's chuck this on it?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like that's half of recording, is we love to just be really experimental with stuff, and it's kind of weird to think about because you hear stuff and then you'd never know what went into it. You know what I mean? But all of the drums were recorded through a tape machine, and that's what gives them like their really just beefy sound. And yeah, there's so many little things on there. On a lot of the tracks, I would often just go over them and just shout. And like, there's a song on the album called Stuck, which is all about voices in your head going round and round. So I just shouted all over the track. And we had there was a moist meter thing that you hold up to the wall, and it like squeaks and tells you how moist the wall is. I think it's something to do with old buildings. And so we put that on a track. We just got my manager doing it up to his hand, going like in a track. So yeah, there's loads of different little experimental things in there that we just like to have fun with.
Of course, and that's good. And those are little interests which you listen to when I listen to records. I don't know if you're the same when you're like, what was that noise in the background, or what was that they used on that? And these are the things you'll be
Yeah.
saying in 20 years' time. You know, you'll be telling people the same stories and wondering if people ever worked it out. You know.
Yeah, all the time. I listen to stuff, and it's actually weird if you open up your like kind of thought process and ears to really listen to music sometimes. And I like to just try and find the little tracks that you don't know are there. There's tracks that you feel are there, but you don't know they're there. And if you really listen out for them, sometimes you can just find a whole new melody that you didn't even realize was there, but was just buried like the whole time. And a
Yeah.
lot of my music's kind of like that. We throw a whole bunch of different melodies and different things in there. So if you listen to it, you'll hear all sorts going on.
No, that's good. That's good. It just shows the commitment you've got to the tracks. Talking about the record as well, though, was there anything really, and it doesn't have to be musical influence on it, but like, was there anything that really like inspired the record, if you will, in terms of like life experience or maybe books, literature, movies, or anything like that?
Well, I think the thing that inspired it was really looking at all of the music that I had done up until that point and going, I love all of these types of music, but I've moved through them and I want to put them all in one and squeeze them all together and have something cohesive that felt like it was still me and all the little parts you can hear from over the years. And yeah, inspiration wise, it's always really hard because
I
I
know,
get so
because I guess inspiration
inspiration.
starts from the moment you buy your first CD, doesn't it? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. But I think I was at the time I was listening to a lot of sort of post-punky kind of rock kind of stuff. So a little bit like Parquet Courts and stuff came through, and
Yeah.
some Beck stuff as well. And I find it crazy because sometimes like people say that I can sound a little bit like Liam Gallagher
Well,
or
if you
Oasis
don't
guy.
mind me interjecting, from the recent singles, maybe apart from the most recent "Write Me a
Yeah,
Letter," which is obviously
yeah.
more like a ballady one, but there's a lot of Brit pop in there, and I don't think it's contrived. I think it's quite a natural kind of occurrence. Do you know what I mean?
This is why it's really weird because I'm not hugely into Britpop. I obviously love some Britpop, but it was never like the thing I was trying to replicate. But I stemmed from the same kind of area that they stem from. You know, Oasis got into making that kind of music because they love the Beatles and rock, and then they combined them, and that's what Oasis was. And that's kind of how I came about. Except I actually have that Britpop influence like wiggled in there as well. So there's like layers upon layers of influence, but I never intended it to sound Britpoppy. I just liked to make rock music, and I I love the Beatles.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think from my ears though, there's more Blur in there than Oasis. I think that period of time, I think it's often forgetting. And I know it was the height of popular culture, and it was all about the coats and the haircuts and stuff like that, as much as it was the music. But there was quite a lot of really good songwriting, particularly from Blur and Oasis and all the other massive Britpop bands. And you've obviously quite a good songwriter, and you've thrown the indie kitchen sink at this. And ultimately, there is going to be comparisons there because bands like Blur, I mean, look what they went on to achieve and stuff like that, and individuals as well. I think it's testament to your sound that it's organically came out that way.
oh, thank you so much. I mean, I've always loved Blur. I don't know much of their earlier stuff, but I did love their, I think it was 2014 or 2015 album, The Miracle Whip. And I was obsessed with that album when I was 14, which was weird for me because when I was 14, I I was going through all sorts of phases. I was listening to like Coldplay, and that was my main thing, and kind of softer poppy tunes. So
Yeah.
yeah, that album was a weird one that sort of slipped through, and I still listen to it all the time. I love that album.
Yeah, and you can hear grunge in there as well. There's bits of Nirvana in there. And let's be
Yeah,
honest, Nirvana are the best grunge band ever, but their songs are still on the radio, you know?
yeah. I mean, I think that all comes from I had my music taste changes so much, and I had my little edgy Nirvana phase when I was 15, and I hate the world, and I was just full of like testosterone, and I remember I had a framed photo of Kurt Cobain on my wall, which is like the least Kurt Cobain thing you could ever do. But yeah, that it's all the different phases of what I'm into kind of influence stuff.
It's great, and the record will be a measurement of where you are right now, and that's a good mark in time. And and we've said it already, but in years to come, you look back, and this is where you are right now. Which
Yeah.
brings me on to what happens next. And I assume you'll be doing the dates hopefully later on in the year. But having such a long time off the road, is it a little bit daunting going back to doing some gigs? And I guess because of when you really came to the forefront in the UK music scene, you didn't really get a chance to do much in the way of maybe headline touring, did you?
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely nerve-wracking to think about. I've just kind of forgotten what it feels like to be a front man. But I'm just also so excited for it because all of the music that we released prior to lockdown was very indie poppy bedroom stuff and wasn't so much like, oh, I really want to see this guy live, because it exists in the Spotify realm, and that's the realm it exists in. But all of the stuff we've released over the last year is just purely live based and ready to be played live. And to be able to play these songs and watch people jump after sitting in my room and listening to them so many times, it's just going to be an amazing feeling.
And have you got the same people around you for the live setup as well as you did before the pandemic?
I mean, it's changed a little bit. I can't lie. The pandemic has it's shifted a few things, like people's lives, people move on, and a year and a half of no music is tough for live musicians. I'm very fortunate in that I do most of the music myself and stuff like that. So there's been a few changes, but we're excited to kind of come back and smash it when we can. I've still got a few of my boys, coming with me on tour, which is good.
No, that's good. That's the best part, really, of getting a band together. It's just having experiences with friends and go to cities you've never been to and having fun.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I've said to the boys in my band when we go on tour, because last time we went on tour, we did a support tour and went around the whole of the UK for the Dirty Hit tour at the end of 2019. And every time we'd go to a new city, we sort of see like an pamphlet in a Premier Inn, go, Llama World? What's Llama World? And I've said to them every day now on tour, when we go back out, we've got to go do one weird thing. Because the few times that we did on tour, I think we went to Waterworld in Stoke-on-Trent, which was like wild. It was like a Wednesday, and it was pouring down with rain, and there was no one in there. We basically got the whole place to ourselves, and it was probably one of the funnest days of tour. So we've made a commitment to doing crazy things like that.
Good on you, Oscar. Okay, what's the ambitions then for the record? I mean, how do you rate success in such a weird landscape now in the music industry? I mean, is it just to achieve those attainable goals which you set yourself? I guess enjoyed getting the singles on radio, making some fun videos, getting to go out back on tour. Is that where you kind of set the goals at, or even higher?
I think really when I'll be able to like feel it and experience it and be like proud is when we're playing the shows live and watching people bounce to them. I try not to set myself like too many goals, as long as people are like enjoying it and feel something from it and it's just spreading around, and then I'm happy. Like if I get too bogged down with the numbers, I have done in the past, and that it really messes you up, and it's exhausting and for no reason as well. It's not going to change anything. So I try to like step back and just be like, I just love making music, and if people love to listen to it, it's amazing.
That's good, and you are quite prolific, I guess, in terms of releasing music over the last few years. You've come out with quite a quantity of music, that has to be said. How soon do your thoughts go on to making another record or another EP after the release of this in a couple of weeks' time?
Immediately. We're already on the next album, and we're an EP deep, and the next album. So it's so weird for me to like talk about stuff when I know what's coming in the future. And also, I'm always making stuff. There's other projects I want to get involved. I'm writing for other people as well, and my life's just like kind of constantly making music because that's what I find fun to do. So that's what I do all the time.
Yeah. What about the other ambitions? And you touched upon writing with other people. I know you've produced and worked with other people before, especially people on Dirty Hit. But is that something you'd like to do long term as well? Have a little your own studio space where bands and other creators come to?
Oh, that's like the dream. The owning a studio and like having a label that people can swing through. I really just want to create a nice like creative space for like people to come through. I'd love to create a studio that offers like people who don't have the resources to go to the studio to come to the studio and record things. And because that's all I wanted like when I was a kid, and even now every time I'm in the studio I kind of like pinch myself and go, I can't believe I'm in the studio. Like even if I told myself this 2 years ago that I'd be in Par Street Studios where Coldplay did all of their records and stuff like that, I just absolutely lose it. So I want to kind of create that experience for other people and promote creativity, because London's such a creative city and there's so much untapped potential there.
No, that's cool, Oscar. It sounds like you've got it all nailed down. We'll leave things there because I'm sure you've got a busy day ahead of you. Wiping your nose and all that kind of thing with the coronavirus. But thanks for coming on Amazing Afternoons with me. You're one of our tips for 2021. So back in October or November, we said this is going to be Oscar Lang's year this year. So hopefully, it's going to be.
It's going to be, when we get back out there, I promise you it's going to be our year. Like we're coming back with a whole new live sound. It's going to hit hard.
Cheers, Oscar.
Cheers, man. Thanks for having me on.